that happened, didn't it? That happened. What is up? What is shaking? Pork chops or bacon? My name is Adam Jacobi of GoIowaAwesome.com, and you are watching the Iowa Sports Review post Big Ten Championship game flagship edition. So our final score was 42-3. Bad guys won. The game was not competitive in the second half. And I would say that any negative thoughts that you might have about the program, the coaching staff, any of the players, did not vanish in the last 3 hours. I'm just going to make that prediction. I also am going to predict that we still probably have a whole lot to talk about after Iowa got absolutely monstered by the Wolverines. And with that, the Rose Bowl dream has finally actually been extinguished. But the good news is Citrus Bowl, in all likelihood, Orlando, Florida. Although after what Michigan did, are we really that eager to see Iowa against one of the SEC's, 4 best teams? We'll find out. But hey, I got to watch the game with friends, with a 160-pound horse dog. I got slapped by the Great Dane's jowls right in the face, and as I was leaving the place, I took a tail straight to the family making area. So that was a nice little cherry on top of that Sunday. So you count your blessings where you can get them. We'll put it that way. But yeah, this is the Iowa Sports Review post-game edition, and this is, if you're new here, this is our post-game chat. We can't call it sound off. We'll get sued into oblivion. And you never want to get sued by a radio station. But that's what this is. So I'm sure you've got some thoughts, some comments. So if you're watching on YouTube, I sure hope you are, hop on down into that chat area. You're going to see it at the right or the bottom right. You'll see a comment by the real Hayden, one of our oldest, longest friends. And it's also down there on the screen itself. But yeah, I'm sure you've got some hot thoughts, some takes, some questions, some comments. The chat area is where to do it. So let me hear them. I want to read them. I want to talk about them. And, let's just get all this. Let's get that negative juju out. Let's talk it out. Let's not go to bed angry, right? That's the rule. Don't go to bed angry. So let's not go to bed angry. Let's talk it out, friends. All right. And straight off the bat, we've got a meth reference. All right, we are in the state of Iowa, indeed. The real Hayden says, wasting money on the Hawkeyes is like a bad meth habit. I know it's bad for me. Jury's still out on that one. I'm kidding. Don't do drugs. Don't ever, especially don't do meth. I know it's bad for me, but I can't stop doing it. Hey, listen. I didn't enjoy 42-3. I worry about those who did enjoy it, other than Michigan fans and probably Iowa State fans who feel like they finally won their Super Bowl. But this was a 10-win team. Still technically could be an 11-win team. They did it without an offense. It's crazy. And so, at some point in the future, and maybe we're not going to be able to have this perspective now, but at some point in the future, there might come a season when Iowa's back to, doing like 3-9, 4-8. It's been about a decade since those days. But one of those days might come back. And I hope at the very least at that point, we are able to appreciate the difference between a pretty disappointing 10-win season and a really disappointing 3-win season. There still aren't a whole lot of programs that have it better than what we've got. And I know that is going to, fall on some unsympathetic ears, especially after, again, losing by 39 in the Big Ten championship game. But I would just counter that there are 12 other teams in the Big Ten who wish they were at the Big Ten championship game. All right. So, if the consolation prize for getting hooked on this weird meth football where offense doesn't exist and even our punter gets blocked, if the consolation prize to that is still going to the Citrus Bowl, all right, it could be worse. Could be worse. We've got a Joe, old friend. Good to see you. Sad realization tonight. Kirk hasn't evolved in 20 years. Not true. He's gotten much older. His hair has evolved into a lighter shade of gray. True story. So many chances to, and he'd rather be an ostrich. He's always also probably the best Iowa can do as a coach. So that's not a bright future. Well, if there is something about the future to keep in mind, I would say, he's not going to be here a whole lot longer. He did tell the team he's planning on being, around for multiple years. But, at some point, there is going to be a new coach, and probably sooner rather than later. I think I would put money down that in 10 years he's not going to be around. Not going to be around the program. I hope he's still alive. But yeah, I mean, this has always been who he is, and this is probably always who he's going to be. And Joe, if you want me to really, really like add on the wolf factor to this, I'll say this. If Kirk Ferentz were the type of guy who decided that, it's throw caution to the wind, go out there, bomb on everybody, score 40 points a game, defense do whatever, but we're going to outscore everybody and we're going to take our chances and risks and this and that. If Kirk Ferentz were that kind of guy, how long ago do you suppose he would have left Iowa City? Right? Like part of conservative Kirk includes not taking any of those NFL jobs, not biting at whatever bait was dropped down by if it was Nebraska, Miami, this, that, there were plenty of high profile jobs that at the very least, if they didn't offer, they, sniffed around, gauged interest. And, if he were if he were really Riverboat Kirk, he probably would have jumped at one of those things. Right. So, at some point, we can't really have it both ways. This is still Iowa City. This is still the University of Iowa. And is that a little bit bleak? Yeah, a little bit. But, at the same time, again, 10-win season in his 23rd year of coaching. There's a whole lot of stability there. There is a whole lot of success there. We don't, people look at football seasons as, championship or bust, or, Rose Bowl, or it's nothing. Like, oh, they won 10 games, but they didn't win anything. Yeah, they did. They won 10 games. They won the Big Ten West. And, those aren't the big goals. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's the ceiling and that's the best that we're ever going to do. And shame on you for expecting anything else. I'm not going to say that, because not even Kirk Ferentz would say that. His goals have always been explicit, and it's not being the most together team. It is to win the Big Ten. But I'm going to tell you that if you want somebody to like decide that they're going to stick around in Iowa City for a quarter century, and not just somebody, but a head football coach, like nobody sticks around anywhere for 23 years anymore. And so the type of person that would, the type of coach that would, is also probably, I'm just going to guess, probably not the type of coach who's also going to, reinvent himself 7 or 8 times and get more and more, high octane on offense. I mean, it's not who he is. I'm sorry. And Joe, would we rather trade a championship for keeping a media? Like, what championship? What trade? If you show me the trade, okay? You are, Joe, God bless you, I love you, but you're inventing scenarios in your head that don't have any basis in reality. And so when you compare the current situation to a fantasy of yours, you are inviting suffering into your world. And at the very least, that's going to ruin your night, buddy. And I want better for you. I want more peace for you. That sounds condescending, but I every word that I just said, I honestly believe. Like, there's not a whole lot that we can do as fans to get Kirk to, be a guy who knows how to run a vertical passing game. We've never had that. He's not that kind of guy. And he's not going to want that from his offense. And it's too bad because I also wish he were at times. I watched that game too. It wasn't fun to see Iowa, 3rd and 8 all the time and converting virtually none of them. I think that there is a fundamental flaw in Kirk Ferentz's offense, which is, just because it's 3rd and short doesn't mean that you need to run a short yardage play. If you're having trouble getting your receivers open, it's probably a scheme thing and not a receiver thing. And, this is the 21st century. Teams are in 21st century offenses and 21st century defenses. Michigan figured out a way to do it. And they were on the brink as late as last year. Now, 2020 was a weird year for football. But even in 2019, they weren't thrilled with the direction that Harbaugh's program was going. And, they even compared him to Scott Frost, which is a comparison that just ages like cheese in a car in the summer. Like, ugh. But, he figured out a way to do it. But he's also not Kirk Ferentz. And if you, Joe, honestly, this is going to sound harsh, but if you'd rather have the go for it, win at all costs coach that moves on, you should probably find a different team to cheer for. Because that coach won't be walking through the door in Iowa City for a few years now. And Kirk Ferentz's job security is about as good as anybody outside of Tuscaloosa. It just is. I'm sorry. And it on days like this, those facts stink. Those are tough to come to terms with. They are. But ultimately, Harbaugh found a way to reinvent the program while keeping the players together. Found a way to, get them to play winning football. Found a way to beat Ohio State and do it handily. That team's got it all. Sorry, Coach Campbell, but Michigan's got it together right now. which is crazy because, there's no Brian Harbaugh on the staff. I'll give Jim Harbaugh this. He has more talented coaching family members than Kirk does. And he found a way to make that really, really work for Michigan without hiring any of them. So I hope. I'll say this. We have seen a little, this isn't the 2020, 2021 Kirk is not the same as 2007 Kirk. That I believe. I honestly believe that. But what I hope is for the limited ways that he does learn, innovate, change the program, I hope he took a look across at the other sideline on the field, saw how Harbaugh raised Michigan up from Ohio State's little brother to, national championship semifinalist, which is in the bag, quite possibly number one seed in the nation. I hope Kirk looks at that, sees what worked for them, because I really don't think there's anything Michigan can do that Iowa can't do in terms of how they run their program. I believe that. I think Michigan is probably always going to recruit just a little bit better if you pay attention to the stars, and Iowa doesn't really, and I don't blame them. But Iowa knows how to recruit defense better than just about anybody. Iowa does, get 4-star players on offense every now and then. I don't think that there's anything, especially in the last 20 years, there's nothing Michigan does that is inherently out of reach for Iowa, especially Iowa, the way it's leveraged with a longtime head coach with years and years of, at the very least, consistent bowl bids, which not a whole lot of teams in the Big Ten have. There's a lot of things that Iowa can and does build on. Even the stadium, we've got a really imposing, at the very least, the north half of the stadium, super imposing. So I hope that there are lessons to be learned by Iowa's coaching staff. How they choose to implement them, what those lessons even are, both of those are so far above my pay grade that, all I do is just sit back and watch. But I hope they did learn. I hope they did. Dan Marks, never heard that name before. My dad thinks we need to get in the transfer portal ourselves and get another quarterback. What do you say? I heard there's this guy, Deuce Hogan, that's available. Got a lot of hype on Twitter a couple of years ago, and that's what really matters is hype on Twitter. So, yeah, I think Iowa should go after that guy. No. First of all, I'm not sure what quarterback would want to play for this offense right now. As a transfer, I should say. They always get pretty decent QB recruits coming out of high school. But, if you've got 1 or 2 years left in your career, I think that you're looking for someplace that you're going to be able to look at that and say, that's my ticket to the NFL. And by and large, haven't really seen that out of Iowa. Shouts out to Jake Rudock and CJ Beathard, but they're sort of the exceptions that prove the rule. And really, there are 2 quarterbacks on this team who are also going to be on the team next year, or at the very least aren't graduating. I don't know what their plans are. But there are 2 quarterbacks on this team who have started and won games in the Big Ten. And as a matter of fact, like Padilla, undefeated as a starter in the regular season. Petrus had a 10-game winning streak, most of which were Big Ten games, right? It's not that there is a shortage of Big Ten ready talent at quarterback for Iowa. And so this notion that all you have to do is change the head of, like, if you put a Ford Fiesta in the Indy 500, why would you be arguing about who's driving it? Right? Like, at some point, you gotta upgrade the engine. You gotta upgrade the engine. And that is one of the big things that I hope Iowa figures out how to do. Step one, offensive line has to get better. Has to get better. You know, Michigan causes problems for so many better lines than Iowa has, especially this year's iteration of Michigan football. Boy, that defense is tough. That defense is so tough. Tyler Goodson was miserable in pass pro. But even by those standards, I think Iowa's offensive line really struggled today. At the very least, really struggled with consistency. Connor Colby, highly rated recruit, really bright future. And I think that he can really start cashing in on that brightness as early as next season. I do. I am optimistic on the whole for Connor Colby. But you can't look me in the eye and tell me he had a good game. You can't look me in the eye and tell me he had a good season. I'm not sure even his parents would suggest that he had a good season this year. And if that's part of the learning process, great, because we've seen that so many times from this team in the years past. But the development does have to happen. It's not a fait accompli. Sorry for using foreign languages after 11 p.m. On a Saturday night. That's probably asking too much. But the development does have to happen, and that really should be priority one for the coaching staff above all else, especially with Tyler Linderbaum probably going pro. Have we even heard? Again, like Spencer Rattler, I get that he's in the transfer portal, but what do you want him to do? What do you do you think he's the magic bullet here? Like, what do you have against Spencer Rattler that you think that he should, like, head to Iowa? That sounds like punishment. Don't do that. Yeah, we've got spam here. But I guess technically it's a Twitch viewer. Yay. Anyway, I've been already ranting for like 25 minutes. Did you guys have any positives from today's game at all? I thought here I'll offer a positive, and now I would like some positives from the chat as well. I thought when they were doing the scripted plays, I thought they looked pretty sharp. I thought Spencer Petras looked as good as he's looked for, maybe the entire season, which, again, low bar. It's a low bar, but I thought Petras looked sharp. I thought his mechanics looked good. I thought he played with more confidence than usual. Now, once Michigan really got those talents in, Wolverines have talents, right? Or would you say claws? You wouldn't say fingernails. Wolverines do not have fingernails. Whenever they sunk whatever it is that Wolverines have in, you could see some of that composure was starting to go again. But at the same time, when Petras was on, looked pretty good. He looked a lot more like the 2020 Petras in this game, in the first half, than we had seen for quite a while. So I hope that is something to build on for him, especially going into next year, and especially, hopefully being able to do that with a better offensive line than what he's got. Right? I hope that is I hope this, as at the very least, was a good takeaway for him. I thought that the downfield passing game was at times more effective than it had been in a long time, which again, sort of like not double-edged sword there for sure. But I'm looking for positives here. A lower than normal amount of stretch plays. That again, yes, yeah, they understood that running stretch inside or outside zone was going to be disaster against this defense, and so they didn't do it as much. So I don't know if that is something that you want to give Brian Ferentz credit for, the soft hypocrisy of low expectations, if you will. But if you think you're mad now, imagine what would happen if they just ran their completely normal base offense the entire time. Right? Man. You know what it was? Missing that field goal to start the drive, or to start the game, that first drive. They're moving the ball, getting chunks of yards. They really needed that 7 on that halfback pass. But when you've got a freshman running back throwing a fade to a fullback, there's only so much that you can expect from a play like that, right? That was a gamble that, if it hits, changes the entire tenor of the game, or at the very least, the entire tenor of the first half. I'm not sure it would still have an effect in the second half, but I'm not sure that Michigan runs its own halfback pass for 75 yards. I'm not sure that Michigan is able to break those off if Iowa's got that little bit of giddy up in its step. I'm not sure. So I'm sure that that's something that Gavin Williams, at Monty Potabom, even Brian Ferentz or Kirk Ferentz, I'm sure they would really like to have that back. But we'll, if that's all it takes to get your team so far off its game that they lose by 39, then obviously some really, really deep flaws here, and flaws that go deeper than we were playing the number 2 team in the nation, which again, they were playing the number 2 team in the nation on a neutral field, right? There was no Kinnick Devil magic to be found under the lights of the RCA Dome or Lucas Oil Dome. That's it, Lucas Oil. Yeah, Zach points out, 7 punts for 331 yards and 5 down inside the 20. There was that one little problem. But ESPN, chalks that up to a team punt at the very least, so it doesn't really count against Torrey's, per punt average. And again, nice day for him on 7 of the 8 punt attempts. But Michigan was really, really coming after those, and they were athletic enough that, and there were enough close calls that it really seemed like Iowa either had to completely adjust the way that it, runs its punt pro, or they were just going to have to roll the dice that none of those attempts by Michigan were ever going to hit the ball. And unfortunately, one of them did. So, at that point, the game was sort of spiraling out of control. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Sometimes the number 2 team in the nation just beats you, and they just keep beating on you. I would have liked to see some more fight, honestly, but at some point, I think that we can just say hats off to Harbaugh, which I know, I don't like hearing those words come out of my mouth, I hear radio static in my head. My brain is trying to block it out in real time as the words just fall out of my mouth. Oh, good job, Harbaugh. I'm so sorry for anyone who's tuning in and just saying that. But what can you do? So I hope for Iowa's sake that at the either there's a whole lot to learn from this and not only learn but implement changes between now and Jan 1 for the Citrus Bowl, which we'll see who that's against. My guess is going to be Kentucky. Do the whole Mark Stoops, Kirk Ferentz, Iowa guy, Iowa and Kentucky never played before. I think if the powers that be really want one of those narrative games, Kentucky is your team, but we'll see. We'll see. And Hayden, hey, it is basketball season. And, speaking of encountering adversity from the number 2 team in the nation, maybe the number 1 team in the nation, come Monday in the state of Indiana, boy, oh boy, did not expect that comeback from the Hawkeye men on Friday night at it's Mackey Arena, right? Yes, at Mackey Arena, West Lafayette, facing Purdue. Full disclosure, when Purdue went up by 19 and Jaden Ivey was just running riot, I was like, man, I've seen enough. I literally changed channel. There was other better basketball on at that point. Then I got a text from somebody when it got down, back down to a 10-point game. And lo and behold, those Hawkeyes had some fight in them. And I'll grant you this, it's a little bit different for basketball than football. There's not offensive and defensive lines in basketball just wearing you down or anything like that. But no one would have been surprised, up to and including me, if the Hawkeyes had just packed it in and said, all right, Boilermakers, do your thing. Take your 30-point leads to your starters. They'll come out. They didn't do that. And kudos to Joe Toussaint. Kudos to, why am I blanking on his name? Aaron Eulis. Both played really good defense in the second half. Brabracha was on the floor for a whole lot of that comeback. He got in foul trouble. That 5th foul, I appreciated the effort at the very least. But you could tell that this Iowa men's basketball team has a whole lot of heart and has a whole lot of defensive intensity. And boy, Joe Toussaint, when he's able to run that 3/4 trap, it puts so much of a pep in his step. Oh man, Tony Perkins is miles ahead of where he was last season. Toussaint is better than where he was last season too, because that jumper is starting to fall. And Joe Toussaint with a jumper is a scary proposition. But yeah, Perk, Toussaint, Rubracha, those 3 were on the floor for most of the second half and most of the good parts of the second half. That's something for a coach to notice and adjust to. Ogundele had something close to the game of his life, all things considered. I hope there's a lot to build on there for him too. But give Iowa credit, the men's basketball team anyway. They stepped, they were playing their hardest opponent of the season in what is probably the most hostile environment they're going to face this season, without their best player, far and away their best player. And they gave Purdue 40 minutes of competition. I've never, and this includes the almost comeback against Tennessee in the tournament about 4 years ago, including that game. I have never had more fans text me after a loss with more optimism than what I got last night after Iowa fell just short at Purdue. I think a whole lot of people are really starting to believe that this team knows how to play ball. They're not. Are they better than last year's team? I don't think that they would beat last year's team. I don't think there's an answer for Luka Garza anywhere on this team's roster, up to and including the Murray twins. That would get ugly in a hurry. But just because they wouldn't beat last year's team doesn't mean they're not better than last year's team. I think that they're better equipped for a Sweet 16 run than last year's team was. So, yeah, man, Ogundele, he's starting to get in shape. And Travion Williams knows a whole lot about playing your way into shape during your collegiate career. Just ask him. Ogundele is on that same little track of having his fitness match his athleticism. And if there's something to build on there for him, right? If he can turn Friday's performance into momentum for the rest of the season, for the seasons to come, that's really promising. That's really promising. So, my fingers are crossed for him as much as anybody. Let's also hope that Keegan Murray is back for Monday's game, which, fortunately is at home, but unfortunately is against Illinois. And Illinois, who has had sort of a shaky beginning to the season, is still really good. They're really good. 6-2, the loss to Cincinnati, just getting blown out by Cincinnati. You wouldn't expect that, but suffice it to say, the Illini are back on track. Just beat Rutgers by 35. It was at home, but that is going to be a challenge, to say the least. Kofi Coburn against anybody on Iowa's team, any of Iowa's bigs. I love Ogundele. I love what he did against Purdue. But going from that to having to D up Kofi, who I can't believe is back in college ball. I don't know how that guy didn't just take his NBA money. I really don't. But this might be like a 1-2 punch for the toughest assignments that our bigs have had or will have for the entire season. So we'll see how they respond to that. A little bit of a reset here for everybody who is just joining us. My name is Adam Jacobi of GoIowaAwesome.com, and you are watching the Iowa Sports Review post-game Big Ten Championship flagship edition, where Iowa lost by 39 points. But all the same, we're here to talk sports. We show up, win or lose, we still booze. No, we don't booze. We drink Bay, which is urban slang for a loved one. How about that? This is the Zambia Bing Cherry, which Zambia is a country in Africa, and Bing cherries were named after Bing Crosby. I can't verify the last part of that, but it feels right. Anyway, this is my beverage of choice, and I hope that you have all chosen wisely with your beverages of choices. Choosing your choice at here 20 minutes before midnight on a Saturday night. I'm not going to tell you that there's anything good about a 42-3 loss. I guess if there's anything, it's that it was only an 11-point game at halftime. Could have been closer than that. Could have been an 8-point game. Could have even been a 4-point game if that trick play had worked. And then you keep everything else equal, although I don't really think that's the way football works. Right? But it wasn't a blowout until the fourth quarter. So there's that. But it's honestly, if the final score for Iowa versus Ohio State was 42-3, it probably would have been 42-0 at halftime. And that would have been even more unpleasant to watch than what we just watched. So, small victories. I can't really offer you a whole lot more than that. If you are still watching, if you do still have your own thoughts about how this is all gone, head on down to the chat. It might, if it's not directly below this on your YouTube screen, then it might be off to the this is all mirrored. You go that over there, bottom right is what I'm trying to say. Ah, man, nobody train wrecks his own live chat quite like me, right? But hop on in there. You can see plenty of chats from your fellow Hawkeye fans. And if you're enjoying yourself, or at the very least, if being in this makes you less angry about that 42-3 game, go ahead and give us a little like. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, a really big favor would be to share this stream, this channel, with some of the other Hawkeye fans in your life. Say, hey, come on in. Even if you want to just troll me for a little bit, let's bug Adam live on air. You can do that. This is a show for all of you. I'm just the prettiest talking head you've ever seen, but that's all I am, is a talking head. So, Dan says, I think Riley Moss was the only good thing. Well, hey, I like that play that he had in the first drive, that third down stop. That, at the very least, we can still be optimistic at that point, because Iowa had just stopped Michigan 3-and-out on the opening drive, effectively, took the wind out of their, being able to take the opening kickoff. That was a win. We had that win. We're driving down the field. We're feeling good. Downfield passing even. Like, for a solid few minutes there in the first half. And by first half, I mean first quarter. Fueled by Riley Moss. We had reason to believe. We had reason to clap out loud. Clap so loud that we were worrying all the dogs in the house. That was fun. It turned very badly, right? Like it's like saying, yeah, it was fun doing the hula hoop until I lost my balance and fell off the cliff. Then it wasn't that fun. Yeah, but hula hooping was still fun, wasn't it? Granted, this is again like it's very much other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? But if it was a good play for the first act, you can still give them a good review on Yelp. I don't know. Did they give her play reviews on Yelp? Probably not. I just got a terrible idea. First off, does the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C., is that still there? Is that still a thing? I have not been to Washington, D.C. as an adult, as somebody with any interest in history. So, and where I'm going with this is, if it is still a thing, if you go on the Yelp or the Google reviews for the Ford Theater, is there anyone pretending to be Abe Lincoln's wife? Sorry, I just have to make myself laugh, right? We're quartered, we're 15 minutes to midnight after Iowa just got monstered. We got to laugh for something, right? I don't know. And also, too soon. If nobody's done that on the Ford Theater Yelp page, good. Honor his memory. And honestly, I think 45 minutes is just about enough. It's not a school night, but it is late as heck. And if you're tired in the morning and your loved ones, your bae is asking you, why are you so groggy? You're like, I was watching Adam Jacobi on YouTube up until midnight, and he couldn't stop talking about Abe Lincoln getting shot and people leaving negative reviews on Yelp because of it. Hard to justify, wouldn't it be? So I think we can call it there. I again 42-3. Not a whole lot you can say about that, but I don't know. Hope our 45 minutes together helped. I guess. Maybe. Well, go basketball. All right. Producer, I'm calling it. With that, thanks for joining us. Thanks. My name is Adam Jacobi of GoIowaAwesome.com. You have been watching the Iowa Sports Review. We will see you again on Tuesday, I believe, with Tom Clos at Classy Hawkeye on Twitter. And we'll have plenty to talk about that. Then, up to and including, I'm sure, Iowa's finalized bowl bid, which, again, I will be shocked if it's not the Citrus Bowl. But we will discuss it at that point. So with that, thank you so much for everybody who came in here. I'm sorry for telling you to stop cheering for the Hawkeyes. Losses do awful things to all of us. But thank you all for coming. Hats off to Michigan. Go Iowa Awesome. Go Hawks. Good night.